Another interesting topic today on Serious and Silliness for you YouTubers. I have today a special guest, Kendra Capalbo. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Okay, good.
The Italian in you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Better pronounce it right.
That's right. And she is a relationship therapist, correct? And you have an LICSW.
Correct.
That's a lot of letters. Why don't you explain that?
It's a licensed independent clinical social worker.
Okay. So basically you have your master's in social work and then what you have to get licensed to be a clinical social. How does that work?
Yep. So in Rhode Island, which is where I was licensed initially, now I'm licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. You get an initial license, which is just a licensed clinical social worker. You're working under someone for 2 years. You take an exam before that, and then you take another exam afterwards. So you like kind of move up the ranks of being a social worker, a licensed social worker, to be able to work independently, hence the LI.
Very cool. A lot of education.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, college and then 2 years of grad school. So
Did you grow up in Rhode Island?
I did.
So did you know Vinny Pazienza?
No, not. I go to I haven't in years, but I used to go to a lot of the MMA fights at Twin Rivers, and he was typically there. So
always there, right?
Always around, but yeah, I don't know him personally.
Did you watch the movie that they made about him?
Yeah, I actually thought they did a good job with that.
Yeah, well, the guy who portrayed him did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy they portrayed him, they did a good job. Of course, they leave a little technicalities out, but that's another conversation. That's for my boxing talk. I got a friend, and next week he's coming. We're gonna talk boxing. We'll leave it for that.
Yeah. Okay.
But so you and I discussed we're gonna talk about a topic that's a little bit controversial, but I believe it to be true. And I think coming from our backgrounds, I think we might actually agree on a lot of this because you're Italian from the East Coast. I'm Italian from the East Coast. Sure. But you're also educated. And the topic is, where have all the masculine men gone? That is the topic. I'll basically give you, everybody who watches my channel knows my background. Originally from Brooklyn and then Staten Island, which is basically, Brooklyn with a above ground pool in it. That's basically what Staten Island is. Brooklyn with an above ground pool in the backyard. All right.
Nice.
And the men were always a little rough around the edges. I grew up in a time where men worked hard, they took care of the family, and they protected women. And they were role models for their sons and the neighborhood kids. And those things like that have changed significantly in the last 40 years or so. So I'm just going to ask you. I have my point of views, but I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Why do you think this is, and do you think it is?
So before I answer that, I'm curious. Is what you just described how you would define like a masculine man? Like, is that what we're working off of?
Well, we're gonna use the basics. Okay. Somebody who is a provider, a protector, somebody with a strong backbone, somebody who could deal with chaotic times, right? Somebody has to be the strong one in the family. Traditionally, it was always the man. And he usually was the person to rely on in times of chaos. A family member dies, somebody comes down with an illness, somebody loses a job, somebody to speak to for advice. And also a protector, somebody who is going to protect his wife and his children. Somebody who provides, somebody who works and goes out of his way to make sure his family has and doesn't go without. There's some other things as well. This is a way a man holds himself, the way a man carries himself, the way a man, just is gentlemanly toward a woman
Mhm.
is, I believe, part of being masculine. I truly believe that how you conduct yourself on a date, if you will, or even just being out with your family, is part of being masculine. But today, I think the word masculine gets confused with being abusive, you know. And I understand there's toxic masculinity,
Mhm.
but I think being masculine and being toxic masculinity is two different things.
Mhm.
So basically, that's the platform we're working off of, the basics, how to deal with people, how to deal with situations. Stupid example. Here's a stupid example. My mother never looked at the check when we went out to eat. My father just paid.
Mhm.
Never looked at the check. Um, not even a concern. He took the check, he paid. And then if there were other men at the table, they would literally argue over who's paying.
Yeah.
Right. And being good to other family members' children as well. So I remember as a kid, I wanted a friend of mine to come with me. There used to be this feast. I don't know if you guys had feasts or whatnot. It would be the Italian feast in Brooklyn, and I wanted my friend to come with me, and I was a kid, and I wanted my friend Lewis to come with me. So my father said, "Yeah, we'll go get him." So his father had a social club, you know. So we went to go. And my father was good friends with his father, so we went there, and uh, Louis goes to give his son money, and my father is pulling Lewis away from him, saying, "You don't need any money. You don't need money. Let's go, let's go, let's go." And he's like, Lou, and he's, you know, and Louis and my father like got into a little. No, my father's name was Johnny. No, Johnny, you got to take some money. You're taking him to the, and they would, things like that.
Yeah.
I don't see things like that happen anymore.
Mhm.
When a family member dies, my father would make sure we all had black suits. He would make sure the arrangements were made. He would make sure um, that the dinners after were the reservations were made. To take the people to, just somebody that basically was a leader and a role model. I rarely see that with men today.
Mm.
I don't see that much anymore. And I believe that even though women want to say they don't want a man like that, I believe that they are instinctively attracted to a man like that.
Well, do you think that it's that women are saying they don't want a man like that, or they don't want the sort of toxic masculinity?
No, I think the majority of, well, first of all, we have to define toxic masculinity, right? So when I think of toxic masculinity, I think of things like being violent,
Sure.
uh, drinking too much, womanizing,
Mhm.
gambling, the typical things that men would always get in trouble for. But I think that label today has like spread way too wide. If you're catcalling, if you're on a job site and you're catcalling to a woman that's walking by, that's considered toxic masculinity. And I don't consider that toxic masculinity.
Mhm.
I consider that guys being guys,
Mhm.
you know. Um, so what do you think? What's your point of view before we go any further? I mean,
So
in your career, in when you help relationships, do you see men that I'm describing, or do you see men that are more reserved, where the woman is more dominant, and so on and so forth?
I think I have, a decent mix of both, to be honest, right now. I think I have both sides of the spectrum. I have couples where, the man very much fits all of the characteristics that you're describing, but also maybe goes a little overboard with some of it, a little too controlling, in my opinion, a little too the expectations a little too demanding on his wife.
Okay.
Um, there's like a particular couple popping in my head as I say that. I have other couples where, you know, the husband is more the stay-at-home type father, and the mom is the one that's, you know, the primary breadwinner, and their dynamic is obviously very different than the first couple.
Right.
So
Right.
I kind of have everybody across the board.
Well, then you're perfect to speak to. You know, then you're the perfect person to speak to about this.
Oh.
um, the younger generation, it seems to be getting worse with the younger generation. It seems like it seems like it started with my generation, Generation X. Yeah, Generation X. And then it seems to have progressed. And then the Generation X used to have that joke about Generation Y, which is the next generation. Do you know the joke? You know, Generation Y, why should I get a job? Why should I move out of my mother's house? You know, and then it seems like it's severely just getting worse and worse. And it seems like to me that women are being raised to be independent, to be dominant. You don't need a man. You know, you got to get an education and a trade or whatnot. So you don't, well, not a trade, an education. So you don't need a man. You don't have to rely on a man. And if you're raised to be dominant, you're going to choose somebody submissive because that only makes sense. Right.
Do you think that it has to be that the description you just gave is dominant or independent? Because I see them as
it's dominant. Independent is an overused word. Independent is a word that people throw around to make themselves feel better. Well, I'm very independent. And then you ask why they're independent, and you go, well, I have a job, I pay bills, keep a roof over my house, I take care of my kids. I'm like, you're a functioning member of society. There's nothing. And quite honestly, if you are quote unquote independent and you don't need a man, well, that's not a good characteristic to take into a relationship, right? Because you need to be dependent on the next person. You need to be dependent on your wife or your husband in order for that relationship to work. And then, you know, if you don't need a man, then you're not going to respect a man, and vice versa, you know.
I would disagree there.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I disagree because I don't think that when I take my own relationship with my husband, I don't feel like I need him per se, but I want him. Like I want to be in a relationship with him. And I think that by not needing him, you know, our relationship is actually on some levels is healthier because I'm not, you know, he's a person to me, like not somebody I just like I'm counting on to pay the bills or
no, I understand. I mean,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
maybe
I agree.
What you're saying with need is I'm taking the wrong way.
How does he feel? Does he feel that he wants to be wanted or needed? And I say that for a reason.
I would have to ask him that question. My guess is
I had this conversation once before. When you say want and need, it sounds like to me, basically you're kind of confusing the genders, if you will. Let me explain. Of course, a woman wants to be wanted. She wants to be desired, right? So in turn, she also wants to want her man. You know, if you're with your husband and he desires you, he wants you, that makes you feel good. And of course, that's what every woman wants. She wants to be desired by her husband or boyfriend or whatnot. Men, on the other hand, especially men that are raised to be masculine and raised to take care of the family, they want to be needed. They feel good, not only when you are in the intimate ways, but when those kind of men buy you something nice or take care of their kids or take you someplace nice or put an addition on the home or whatnot, that makes them feel good. That makes them feel needed, right? And that makes them feel responsible. Feels like they're doing their job. It makes them feel like a man. And I had this question with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law she says to me, you know what I said to you, brother? Would you rather be wanted or needed? right? And my brother said needed, and she said wanted, and she said, well, I don't understand. And I actually had to say that. I actually had to explain that. And then everybody was like quiet. I was like, all right, forget it. Jesus, just, like, I don't mean to make everybody awkward. Just keep going. Right? Because like, if I buy something nice for my wife and she's happy, that makes internally me happy, because instinctively men want to take care of their tribe. They are instinctively providers, right? And
Does she need you to do that?
does she need me to do that?
Like, does she need you to buy her something nice, or does she want you to buy her something nice? She appreciates it.
Of
She,
course, of course. But
appreciates the compliments.
no, right. I understand what you're saying, but of course she wants it, right? But I'm saying her instinctual feeling is that she's going to want, where men instinctually want to be needed, right? Think about it. Okay. When a man is down and out, if he loses his job,
Mhm.
and they have an argument, and a woman really wants to get under his skin, she'll say, so you can't even hold the job. You got no money. I gotta pay for everything now because you can't hold the job. That is like getting stabbed in the heart for a man,
Yeah.
right? That is like saying, and the reverse for a woman would be like, oh, look how fat you're getting. You're not sexy anymore. I don't desire you. I don't want you anymore. Right.
Mhm.
That's the correlation. So I think that when you decide, need and want, those are the difference. I think we're digressing. Let's get back on the topic.
I'm good at that.
No,
Sorry.
but it's a good it's actually a good conversational piece, because it's the truth. And I think that's one of the reasons relationships have a problem, is because they don't want to understand the difference, what makes a man and what makes a woman. And I think a lot of people don't like, okay, women want to, women today's women, generally speaking, are independent. I'll get into that. But they still say they want to be treated like a lady, right?
Mhm.
They still want their car door open for them. They still want the man to pay. They still want a man to put the jacket on for them. Well, in turn, men want to be treated like men, right? So there's a way a woman goes about herself on a date or in a relationship that makes him feel like a man, right? And knowing that a man takes me out, I don't want, if you and I are on a date, I don't want you to pay.
Mhm.
Okay. If you pay, that means you don't need me. And that's not what I want in a relationship. I want to be able to take care of my wife.
Mhm.
So in a situation where, like me and my wife makes as much money as I do. She owns a hair and nail salon. She's still at work, you know.
Mhm.
But when we go out to dinner, I pay. And she knows, and she could very easily pay, but she knows that I pay.
Mhm.
She knows on date night that I'm paying and I'm taking her out and I'm making the reservations. And in turn, when she gets stressed, I'm telling her how beautiful she is. And I'm telling her I'm opening the car door for her, and so on and so forth. So if I think there has to be that balance in order for a relationship to uh, in order for a relationship to last and to strive, because those roles aren't written in stone anymore.
Mhm.
Those roles aren't written in stone anymore, but you can't change instinct, right? So you still want to be called beautiful, and I still want to be treated like a man.
Mhm.
So if people are in a relationship and they don't take that into consideration, I think things could go horribly wrong. All right. Anyway, whatever. We're getting off on a tangent. Okay. In your experience, in your career, have you worked with men that aren't what we described? Men that are more conservative, more laid back, more meek, more not ambitious, not aggressive, kind of. Have you seen in your experience men like that?
Sure. Yeah.
Have what were their backgrounds like? Like, how did they grow up?